My name is Ella Cronin. I am the intern for San Diego Climate Week. And in anticipation of San Diego's inaugural Climate Week, we have the opportunity to interview our climate champion sponsor, WILDCOAST. As we kick off San Diego's inaugural Climate Week, we are honored to be joined by one of the region's most inspiring environmental leaders. Serge is the co-founder and CEO of WILDCOAST, an international organization dedicated to conserving coastal and marine ecosystems. A former California State Parks ocean lifeguard and two-term mayor of Imperial Beach, Serge has dedicated his career to protecting coastlines and oceans throughout San Diego and abroad. Beyond his leadership at WILDCOAST, Serge is also the author of 3 books and an accomplished speaker on climate change and coastal resilience. Today, we are thrilled to hear his insights as we come together to launch San Diego Climate Week. Now we will turn it over to Serge. Hi, welcome, Serge. We're happy to have you here with us today. We wanted to begin by asking you for a brief overview of WILDCOAST and the work that you do in the U.S. and in Mexico.
So I co-founded WILDCOAST with a guy named Wallace J. Nichols, who passed away last year, a real prominent marine biologist who studied sea turtles. I had just finished my PhD on gray whales and having worked with the Nature Conservancy in Mexico. And the idea behind WILDCOAST was to save coastal and marine ecosystems, big, wild places filled with wildlife. And then more recently, really to carry out natural climate solutions. So to do things that help mitigate and adapt to climate change, helping restore coastal wetlands, protecting coral reefs, conserving and restoring mangrove ecosystems and seagrass and kelp forests, things that actually help sequester carbon. So we've been around for 25 years now, celebrating our 25th anniversary. And over the last 25 years, we've helped to protect about 38 million acres of globally important coastal and marine ecosystems from southern Mexico all the way to northern California. Big ocean and coastal areas like our marine protected areas in California, over 500,000 acres of those. And then big, extensive coastal protection areas and ocean conservation areas in Mexico. So we actually own 40,000 acres and 40 miles of coastline in central Baja California that we work in partnership with the Mexican National Park Service to protect. And then further south, for example, in Oaxaca, we're working with indigenous communities to conserve big areas of coastal tropical forests. And then with Mexico's National Park Service to protect some of the world's most important sea turtle nesting beaches, places where in the last few weeks alone, 300,000 sea turtles laid their eggs, right? Just extraordinary places. So I'm really lucky I get to go out into San Diego's most amazing and beautiful places like La Jolla Cove, where you can see 7 gill sharks. And then last week I was just in Oaxaca, on a sea turtle nesting beach. So I'm pretty lucky, and WILDCOAST is really fortunate to have the opportunity to help work with people and communities to protect these amazing places and wildlife.
That's amazing. And a lot of your work has been within San Diego and California, from lifeguarding our beaches to serving as mayor of Imperial Beach. So obviously you have a lot of background in California, and based on your experience, can you share just a little bit about what makes San Diego's coastlines and communities so unique and special to you and WILDCOAST?
Yeah, I grew up in Imperial Beach, so I arrived in Imperial Beach from LA when I was 7. I still have the memory of my first day on the beach next to the Tijuana Estuary back in 1971. It was actually about 54 years ago. So it's fall of 1971, and that south end of Imperial Beach, right where you can go on the beach, and then behind you is the Tijuana Estuary. So, I'm lucky that I love pretty much every inch of San Diego's coastline and know it well. But what makes San Diego so interesting is really the diversity of the ecosystems and the well-preserved status of some of our really important sort of ecosystems. So everything from our coastal lagoons in North County, Agua Hedionda, Bataquitos, San Dieguito, Los Penasquitos Lagoon, and then South San Diego Bay. And despite all the problems of pollution, the sort of miraculous and basically important ecosystem of the Tijuana Estuary, and then our kelp forest and marine protected area ecosystems, places like the area around Sunset Cliffs, all the kelp forests and rocky reefs of La Jolla, all that area, Solana Beach, and for example, Encinitas are great. And then I was just at Torrey Pines State Park this weekend. You know, Torrey Pines is globally unique with these Torrey Pines in this really, really interesting and unique sort of sandstone cliff habitat, right? And the lagoon below and this gorgeous beach offshore to the submarine canyon off of Black's Beach that attracts sharks and big ocean animal. And I've been swimming a lot this summer at La Jolla Cove. And, you know, how many places in the United States can you go off a big city and then swim with a school of 7 gill sharks? So we're really, really lucky in San Diego that we've got this diversity of ecosystems, areas that are protected and have been restored. And if you look at every one of them, there's a group of passionate local residents who have spent their lives making sure these areas are protected and then focusing on restoring and every inch of them. So that's what's been really rewarding for me over the last 50 years, is getting to know people like Patricia and Mike McCoy, legendary conservationists in Imperial Beach to help protect the Tijuana Estuary. People like Jim Pugh, and who has worked tirelessly to protect Mission Bay and all kinds of other Formosa Slough. And then my friend Dwight Worden, the former Mayor Del Mar, who is like the encyclopedia of everything San Diego and Bataquitos, right? So really extraordinary people that have dedicated their lives to protecting these areas. And Wild Coast works a lot with many of them.
That's great. Yeah, the community is such an important part of conservation, and also having memories with these places as well. We wanted to ask, on a personal note, if you have a favorite memory of the San Diego coast that reminds you why this work matters.
Well, you know, I grew up in Imperial Beach, and I learned how to surf in 1977 in Imperial Beach, and then Coronado, and then Cardiff. I was the first place I rode a wave, but really have spent a lot of time at the south end of the beach in Imperial Beach, at the mouth of the Tijuana River when it wasn't polluted, and just have some extraordinary memories, vivid memories of surfing with my kids and longtime friends. There's a reef offshore called, what the surf break is called, the Tijuana Sloughs. It's a really remarkable submerged reef that is now protected as a marine protected area, and obviously really impacted by all the sediment and pollution coming out of the Tijuana River. But when the conditions are right in the winter, you know, we're out there more than half a mile from shore, surfing really fun waves. And probably what makes it really special is there's a pod of bottlenose dolphins that really go from Imperial Beach up to Coronado. You can see them at the Silver Strand. And when we're surfing out there, we'll be surfing, you know, 8 to 10 foot surf and waves. And then you'll have dolphins leaping out of the water and sometimes riding waves when we're surfing. So that's something that'll always be with me, right? Thinking about that. But on the other side of that, though, is I remember in 2016, we had a closure of the Tijuana River mouth from sand that had been deposited from the sand replenishment projects, and we couldn't get that lagoon opened quick enough. And I'll never forget the day after they opened it, and there were hundreds of leopard sharks that had died inside the estuary. And that was one of the shocking, devastating things I've ever seen. I love leopard sharks, and I love sharks, and to see them just dead en masse all over the Tijuana estuary was really, really tragic. Became a national story, and just highlighted to me how, while we have these wondrous and amazing coastal and ocean ecosystems, they're really fragile, and things can go south immediately. And I think the Tijuana estuary, in the case of the border pollution, is just an example of how we can't take these places for granted, and we always have to be protecting them.
Yeah, that kind of goes into the next topic of what are the critical issues that are affecting our oceans in San Diego right now. I think obviously with your experience living here all of your life and all the work that you've done, it's very personal, and you've seen firsthand how these habitats have changed. So what are kind of the issues that we're facing right now?
Well, you know, the ongoing pollution crisis in the Tijuana River and on the border, because pollution comes in from the Tijuana River, from the canyons down to a border field. And then there's about 45 million gallons of sewage discharge on the beach. about 4.5 miles south of the border that washes north and is polluting all of northern Baja and basically from Ivy to Coronado. That's obviously, the most egregious coastal pollution issue in North America. There's nothing else like it. It's devastating. It's not just raw sewage. It's toxic waste. It's sediment that's washing in from the canyons in Tijuana. Illegal development, for example, and just with runoff. And then it's debris. So waste tires that are actually imported from California into Mexico and then washed back across when it rains. And then tons and tons of marine debris or plastic. So that issue just highlights why we have environmental regulations, why we need environmentalists, and why we need cross-border cooperation. But also, again, how vulnerable these protected ecosystems. I grew up as a little kid with my parents working with people like Patricia and Mike McCoy and others in Imperial Beach, and now to help protect the Tijuana Estuary as a National Wildlife Refuge. That was, we stopped a big marina development there in 1980, and it was declared a National Wildlife Refuge. But more than 90% of it has been filled in with sediment from the Tijuana River and the canyons along the border. So that is, to see this habitat literally be eliminated or devastated in my lifetime, it's been really, really sad to watch, but also just highlights why we do the work we do and why it's important never to sort of take your finger off the gas pedal when you do conservation. So that's one thing, and then obviously there's always some sort of development project somewhere. Someone always has their eye on building next to a park or in a park. And that's something I think we're really, really mindful of, is making sure that the areas that we have protected are more than 11,000 acres of marine protected areas in San Diego, are all these coastal lagoons that we have protected, are public beaches, to make sure that we those areas are sacred, right? That we do not impinge upon them, that we continually respect them and make sure people have access to the coast and that the wildlife are thriving. So that's really important to me. But finally, a lot of other issues, but obviously climate change is the game changer. And what we see are the transformation of ecosystems in our lifetime. So climate change, especially the changes in ocean temperature, increase in ocean temperatures having a big impact on the ocean, resulting in acidification, and then changing the migratory patterns of ocean animals, and then causing the die-off of food in the areas that big ocean animals like gray whales, for example, depend on. So the gray whales that, are basically going up to the Arctic every year, the Bering and Chukchi Sea, are coming down past San Diego on their way to Baja to give birth, and they're literally starving to death. So this year we had more than 90 gray whales die in the lagoons of Baja California and die on the beaches of southern Baja. So that was a big wake-up call, a canary in the coal mine about the impact of climate change. And then scientists this year, and it was a big story in National Geographic about how they're concerned about the loss of how blue whales have stopped communicating with each other as in the way that they normally do, and they're concerned that could have an implications from climate change and stresses on blue whale. And so that's the other miraculous and important habitat we have off our coastline, and that's the big ocean we have, right, just offshore, this wild, beautiful blue space that now scientists have really talked about being one of the most important ocean migratory corridors in the world, right? So this blue superhighway that extends from the north all the way up northern Alaska, all the way down to the Galapagos. We have these big ocean whales, we have sharks, sea turtles, big fish that are using that superhighway. And so that's something that I think has taken on more importance. And just a few weeks ago, I was out 12 miles offshore and with 1,000 dolphins leaping out of the water, saw blue shark jump out of the water. And last year we were out and saw humpback out there. So it's a really, really important, really undiscovered, not well known sort of how this corridor works. But what we do know is we need to make sure we're protecting those areas well, and that climate change is having a big impact on migratory ocean animals and all wildlife in general, the ocean ecosystems.
Yeah, San Diego seems to be situated at an intersection of so many different environmental issues that are all kind of at the root of your organization. And you're a climate champion sponsor of our Climate Week, and you'll also be moderating our South Region Anchor event on Friday, October 3rd. at the Tijuana River Estuary, which obviously is a big part of the work that you do. Just wanted to ask why supporting the San Diego Climate Week was personally important to your organization.
Yeah, well, I'd always, first, the minute I saw something on LinkedIn about San Diego Climate Week, I was super excited, like jumping for joy, excited, because I got a little tired of looking at posts about New York Climate Week and having all these West Coast folks go to New York. And I try to look at New York Climate Week, and all I could figure out was that you'd have to run around the city for a week. And it wasn't really clear to me why it was worth going. And I didn't want to sort of like spend thousands and thousands of dollars to go to New York, when I realized that, the work that goes on around climate change, addressing climate change in San Diego is really important. So I think San Diego Climate Week is a no-brainer, right? We need to bring together this really vibrant environmental community, climate champion community that we have, that are doing so many different things, so many creative, strategic, and visionary things to address climate change, and really give people hope that we can address this climate crisis. It was exactly the right time to do it. It's really important to get on the ground floor and support things like San Diego Climate Week. So I was really grateful to Erica and the whole team for putting that on. And it was just a no-brainer for WILDCOAST to support it because, as a climate champion, as someone that, like an organization that's working on blue carbon-based restoration in the United States and Mexico and putting people to work to create blue jobs to restore ecosystems and sequester carbon and help adapt to climate change, we think it's really important to make sure that we can support each other and make sure this work happens.
Yeah, and as you said before, San Diego's being positioned near the coast and being sort of a city that's very integrated with the environment. I think that, having a climate week here is well needed. You'll be collaborating with other sponsors and partners to host your own events during the week. Do you think you could tell us a little bit more about the events that you have planned?
Yeah, very excited. In addition to helping moderate a panel at the Tijuana Estuary on October 3rd, WILDCOAST is doing a field trip to Bataquitos Lagoon in Carlsbad with the Bataquitos Lagoon Foundation. So we'll be doing that Tuesday, October 7th from 9 to 12. So you can sign up on that through the San Diego Climate Week website. And then on October 8th at Scripps Seaside Forum, we're working with WILDCOAST and co-sponsors like the Port of San Diego to put on a blue carbon collaborative symposium. It'll be a one-day event bringing together blue carbon-based advocates and practitioners from California and Latin America to talk about ways in which their work focused on real community-based techniques and projects around blue carbon-based restoration and conservation. So that should be really, really exciting. I think the field of blue carbon-based restoration has really helped getting its start in San Diego. We have great scientists at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography that really pioneered the field of measuring the amount of carbon that these blue carbon or ecosystems, coastal ecosystems, are helping to store. So I think I'm really looking forward to that as well. You can tell I'm a blue carbon, I'm a conservation nerd, but I get excited about having a symposium around blue carbon and addressing climate change. I think all of us climate nerds really get excited when we get together and can talk about this stuff. But I think that's the other thing that's important about San Diego Climate Week. We're all over Zoom. We're all over doing things, when we're apart. It's more important than ever that we get together in person and work with each other and hang out with each other and learn from each other. And I think that's why these types of forums are so important. There's just also a whole new generation. I'm now 61. I've been doing this work for a long time. It's really more important than ever to support all the young people like yourself, right? Getting involved in this field. And that's really our job as all the OGs, right? The old guys, the senior men and women in this movement, to really support all the young people and get them excited and hopefully give them some jobs as well. And that's why it's really great out at WILDCOAST. We have 30 staff members and lots of young people involved in this movement. But I think that's why San Diego Climate Week is so important. It's just to create and sustain this movement and get people excited and energized about doing some really tough work, because it's not easy work.
Yes, I completely agree. And it can be a bit daunting as well when you're just doing the work on your own, or, you're not connecting with the community or the larger community around your city. So just to know that there are organizations, there are businesses, there are people all over that care, I think having that sort of community to build you up kind of makes these challenges, although they're sad sometimes, it makes them feel more manageable when there's a lot of people behind you. Yeah, a lot of these events will bring people together of all different backgrounds. And what do you hope that people will walk away with after participating in either your specific events or just in Climate Week in general?
Yeah, I think what's important about San Diego Climate Week, and there's a reason why WILDCOAST is supporting it, is because this is the mission of our times, right? Helping to preserve and heal our planet and to give people hope that we actually can make a difference and address climate change. And I think what you see across this broad spectrum of events, just a whole diversity of different activities going on, but getting people engaged with hands-on things and looking at how people are being successful in the battle against climate change, whether it's planting trees, doing art, coastal restoration, preserving art, all kinds of our diversity of ecosystems, or riding bicycles like the opening event on October 1st, doing anything we can to actually make a positive impact and have a difference, and showing people that they can have an impact and make a difference. And I think that matters more than ever to people, especially young people, when we're living in some pretty challenging times. So the idea is to say, hey, look, we work together, focus on really concrete, specific, tangible things. We can have an impact, and you can have a career, and we can make a difference.
I completely agree. And on the topic of what people can do to make a difference, in regards to coastal and marine ecosystems, what do you think is the most important thing that people can do to protect them?
Well, what I love about San Diego, and I love hanging out with all our partners and fellow colleagues that do coastal and ocean restoration work, whether it's San Diego Bird Alliance, or the SWIA down in the Tijuana Estuary, or the Friends of South San Diego Wildlife Refuge, or Bataquias Lagoon Foundation. I can go on and on. I think really hands-on volunteering for hands-on restoration events are really get people excited. They get their hands dirty, their feet, they get in the mud, and really do something positive. There are also a lot of coastal cleanup days. Surf Rider and I Love a Clean San Diego have been great, and San Diego Coastkeeper as well as WildCoast support a lot of cleanup events. So I think that's really good. Whatever you can do to actually make a difference and clean up or restore a patch of the earth or the ocean is worth doing, right? And what I always find extraordinary is how little it takes to actually make a difference for wildlife. So we just are dredging, digging canals in the Bay of La Paz and southern Baja in the city of La Paz to help restore mangroves and improve wildlife conditions. And the minute you open those channels, the fish and the shrimp and the crabs come in. And I saw that happen in South San Diego Bay when, thanks to SWIA and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, did a big ecosystem restoration program in South San Diego Bay. And the minute all these wetlands were created, the birds came, right? So wildlife and ecosystems know when things are getting better. And so it's our job as humans, that's how we developed as humans, is tending to the earth and to the ocean.
Yeah, reconnecting people to that. And a lot of these solutions can be more simple than people think. It can be a very daunting topic, but once you get your hands dirty and just become aware of these issues, it can become a bit easier to tackle. And I guess another thing with the events and partnerships in San Diego Climate Week, how do you think they will shape public awareness and action in the San Diego community?
Yeah, I think the importance of San Diego Climate Week, it gives people a platform to sort of identify all those different, if you like art, or you're focused on bicycling, or you want to protect coastlines or mountain or deserts or wildlife. I think there's something for everybody, and it gives people sort of a whole range. It's like the Disneyland of climate activism or climate advocacy or climate work, right? And I think that's what's really important, to get people engaged, give people positive, meaningful things to do, to give us hope and to give us joy. Because at the end of the day, I always tell a lot of the young people who are starting in this career, you have a lot of years left ahead of you. You need to find joy in the work. You need to take a break and get outside. You need to go out in the field and enjoy nature. And I think that's more important than ever, we need to recharge. And the way we recharge is either through nature We're being plugged into the people around us, so we're fired up and ready to go because times are tough and we've got some tough times ahead of us, and we need all the help we can get. And the more energy we have collectively, the more we'll get done and the more we can move forward.
Great. Yes, I agree. And then going back a bit to Wild Coast and just reflecting on the future of your organization in the next 5 to 10 years, what does success look like for Wild Coast, or for, I guess, for coastal regions in general?
Well, in San Diego is to continue to support the restoration and conservation of our vibrant coastal lagoons and estuaries and continue focusing on restoration efforts there, as well as protecting these ocean ecosystems off our coast that are marine protected areas. And then obviously getting some progress made on this horrendous Tijuana River and border pollution problem we have. And further south in Mexico, we're working on protecting one of the largest contiguous coastal wildland areas in North America, 13 million acres of what's called the Vizcaíno Biosphere Reserve, and then Valle de los Cirios Reserve. They're contiguous giant areas that occupy almost a third of the Baja California Peninsula. And so really working on protecting those areas in partnership with Mexico's National Park Service. And then we're working all over Mexico with groups of women and women's collectives and cooperatives, indigenous communities, to really support their efforts to protect and restore coastal mangroves that really help protect their livelihoods and communities. So that's something we're really excited about, pumped up about, and is really important if we're to continue to help address the climate crisis and make sure that communities really come first when we talk about how to do that. So I'm very excited about that. And so we have a lot of work ahead of us, but a lot of opportunities. And it's really important to support the people who are on the ground, the guardians of the wild, that are doing a lot of the work.
Yeah. And on the topic of community and community engagement, how do events like San Diego Climate Week, or some of the events that we have, help you get to these goals that you're looking at?
Yeah, well, a lot of our work is based on, having volunteers help out, having people work in the field. So I think that's really part of it, having a larger supply of volunteers who can help with projects, and then support many of their efforts to be the lead on protecting ecosystems. If we work in Bataquitos Lagoon, it's only because, for example, we're supporting the Bataquitos Lagoon Foundation that does that work. And on marine protected areas, there's always local advocates that are really behind these efforts to protect these iconic ocean ecosystems. And the same with the Tijuana Estuary. There's just a whole host of people that have been working on these issues for years, and they need our support. So I think that's what's really important to me, to make sure we expand the numbers of people that are really engaged in this type of work.
We're about to wrap up, but you talked a little bit about recharging with nature and people in this field needing to have the balance of, working towards the environment, but then also recharging and having some climate optimism. Do you have a little optimism that you want to share about, like, your own personal optimism, or how you recharge so that you can keep giving in your organization?
I need to recharge, and I do that, like this summer, I spent quite a bit of time swimming at La Jolla Cove. Not like the fanatics who swim 3 miles a morning, but just doing about a half mile offshore. And there's a group, you can find 7-gill sharks there. So the last time I swam, I saw about between 15 and 20 7-gill sharks, which is pretty amazing. So, or whether it's I take a break at lunch and walk to the beach in Del Mar and go body surfing or surfing. This weekend I hiked Torrey Pines with some friends. So really for me, recharging is all about connecting with nature and just being immersed in nature. And we're lucky in San Diego, whether you're near a beach, the ocean, or a coastal canyon, or amazing areas like Mission Trails or Mount Laguna or Borrego, maybe not now when it's so hot. You have a chance to connect with nature and maybe see some wildlife. So we're very fortunate to have these areas and this wildlife in our lives, but we need to spend more time around it and stay off this. This is killing us. Nature is nurturing us. So that's something we have to remember. Get off the screen and get outside.
I completely agree. And I'm outside right now, on the screen and outside. It's got a little bit of both. I want to thank you so much for your time today and for Wild Coast leadership as our climate champion. of San Diego Climate Week. It's really been an honor to learn about you and your organization and the exciting future that we all share here in San Diego. And look forward to joining you in the greater San Diego community at San Diego Climate Week. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks so much.